Today I'm going to give you some tips on how to become better at Killzone 2 multiplayer. Pretty exciting, huh? Now, many of these things will be intended for the new players to hear, but some of you Killzone 2 veterans may learn a thing or two by listening to this video as well. And when I say become better, I mean not only improving your personal stats, but also getting more team wins. Just note though, sometimes you will need to make sacrifices to your own personal stats in order to secure a team win, and I'll hit upon that a few times in this video. If your reaction to what I'm saying so far is, holy smokes, you can still play Killzone 2 multiplayer, then I suggest you watch the video I have linked in the description that shows how to get set up to play on the private server that now is the host for this multiplayer. Okay, so let's get into it. If you are new to the game, spend time in the skirmish mode, which is where you fight computer opponents. It's a great place to learn the maps, get used to shooting the guns, and learn the rules of winning the different objectives in the game. However, once you get those basics down, it is much better for you to play against real players, because these bots play totally different from your typical humans. And one of the biggest differences is they don't use the run button, at least not that often. They just slowly walk around and behave like a bot. If you get too used to them, then you're gonna have a lot of trouble dealing with humans who move in a totally different way. Also, if you're new to the game, one thing to keep in mind is that in the multiplayer, you will start off with hardly anything to fight with as far as weapons and abilities. That's because those get unlocked as you play for a long period of time. However, 99% of the people you play against have everything already unlocked. That includes an additional grenade. Those players start off each respawn with 2 grenades, but you as a new player only start off with 1 grenade. This makes a huge difference in the outcome of the matches. So what I strongly suggest you do is get a completed save file from someone on Discord and install it onto your PS3. That will give you all the weapons, all the abilities, and the additional grenade. You do not need to hack your PS3 to do this. There is already a built-in file sharing utility on the PS3 dashboard. That video I mentioned a moment ago, which is linked in the description, has a segment to it that shows how to install a file. Just look for the chapter on that video called Get a Save File. By the way, this is not considered cheating by the Killzone 2 community. Most of them did the same thing, and they are more than happy to make sure that you have all the abilities and weapons. If you insist on not importing a save file, just know that you are impairing your team's ability to win the match. I've seen it a lot of times. You could have a match where it's 6 versus 6, and there may be 2 new people on one of the teams, and on the other team, all 6 of them are experienced people that have everything unlocked. So assuming the new players haven't imported a save file, they are unintentionally making it so that their team is going to have less stuff to work with, including fewer grenades to throw. New players should also check their control options. Most people recommend alternate 2 for button mapping. That makes the controls similar to modern day first-person shooters. Also make sure the box is filled for high precision. I had it turned off once and I could not hit a thing. I also recommend zoom and crouch hold be checked. Sensitivity is more of a personal preference. As I became better at the game, I started to increase it and it's up to 100 now, so I do not recommend you start off at 100 there. Speaking of controls, be aware that you can actually use a PS5 DualSense controller on the PS3, and it works very well for the multiplayer. In my opinion, it's superior to the standard DualShock 3. It's just more comfortable, and I feel like I perform better when I'm using it. Plus, they don't make PS3 controllers anymore, so many of them are starting to get worn out. Not to keep referencing my other videos, but in the description, I'll leave a link to a video where I go through the process of connecting the DualSense to the PS3. Note, you cannot use the DualSense in the campaign of Killzone 2 because there's some motion control parts of the campaign that the DualSense cannot do. If you do insist on using the original PS3 controllers, just know that there are a lot of counterfeits out there. The analog sticks on them may not work as well as the ones on the original. So once again, I'm going to reference another video. I made one on how to spot a fake PS3 controller. Okay, moving on from that. One thing I've noticed is that new players like to equip the revive ability, but many of them use it in a way that can cost their team a win. When you revive a fallen teammate, they cannot refuse it, and as they're rising up from the ground, they are very vulnerable. So you want to make sure you're not reviving them in an unsafe area. Here's an example of how not to do it. I get killed in this hallway, and a teammate comes racing around the corner and revives me without checking for enemies. And as a result, I die again in the same spot. Doing things like this basically hands the enemy a free kill and denies your teammate the opportunity to help you win the objective, at least until they respawn. If it was during body count, you will have handed the opposing team some free points, and in a close match, that can hand your team the loss. Bottom line, be aware of the situation around the downed player before you revive them, but I do realize that accidents do occur. Speaking of handing your opponents free kills, another way to prevent that from happening is to not bunch up with your team members. Like in this example, I'm about to die, and then when I do, on my death cam, you can see a large number of my opponents bunching themselves up in this alley. There's about 5 of them. Now, as I respawn, watch this readout. One of my team members threw a grenade and killed 3 of them. That's good for my team, but I'm just trying to make my point here that you shouldn't bunch up. Since it was body count, the death meter increase at the moment that that blast occurs. So bottom line, people should stay a grenade blast distance away from each other. The typical multiplayer match is 7 rounds, each one with its own objective. Make sure you're helping your team to win those objectives. In the case of these ones, you need to haul your butt to a specific location on the map. Like right here, as soon as I see that search and destroy has become the current objective, I run toward the bomb targets to defend them. And here I am defending them. You are more likely to get killed being in the hot zone like I am right here. But like I said at the beginning, sometimes you need to sacrifice yourself to get the team the win. And this is one of those situations where you need to do it. And when you are in that hot zone, you're going to learn to become a better player because you're going to have a lot of incoming fire and you're just going to get better at evading stuff. As you're playing the current objective, start thinking about what the next objective may be, especially when the clock is about to run out. The game randomly chooses the different rounds, but if you keep track of what objectives have already been played, you can deduce what the next one might be. And in some cases, you might want to pre-position yourself where you think the next objective is going to be. Since there's 7 rounds, if there's already been 6 objectives, you should be able to know exactly what the 7th and final objective is going to be. Speaking of objectives, when you're playing assassination and your team needs to defend one of your team members, the best way to win that is to equip the revive ability. Because if they fall, reviving them keeps the countdown going and it gives them a little bit of invincibility at the same time. If you don't already have it equipped and the round gets announced as being assassination, you might actually want to blow yourself up with a grenade or get yourself killed by the enemy so that you can go back and can choose to equip the revive ability, and then stay near your teammate and revive them if they fall. Even the most experienced players are not protecting the target. Like right here, where I'm the target, hardly anyone on my team is protecting me. There's one guy who is equipped with the revive, and he's able to get that off, but we both get overrun after the revive. Automated turrets are a valuable tool for winning the game. It's almost like having an additional player on your team. You should be in the habit of destroying the enemy ones when you see them near the objective points. Like right here, the objective is search and retrieve, and there's a turret right above one of the critical points, so I take the time to destroy it. Now my team has a little bit better chance of winning this objective. Each team can only have 4 turrets out at the same time. Knowing that, it's important that they be placed in the best areas, and those best areas are typically around the various objectives. But the thing is, as the objectives change, the turrets do not walk over to the area of the new objective. Your team may be playing Search and Destroy right here on this map, and they place some turrets down and eventually win that objective, but then the next objective ends up being Search and Destroy on the other side of the map. So everyone has to move to that area. The turrets that got placed in the old objective stay there for some time, and since your team can only have 4 of them, that means they have fewer to put down at the new objective, which could hurt their ability to win that objective. The solution is to destroy your own turrets. Not just yours, but your team's. That would free up more spots for people to lay down new turrets at the new location. Conversely, if your opponent has a turret far away from the objective, you might want to just leave it there, because it being there robs them the ability to place another one down in a better spot. By the way, everything I've said about turrets can also be applied to air support bots. I keep mentioning not to hand your opponent free kills. Never is that more true than in body count. If you're new to the game and you have a habit of dying more often than you get kills, then you need to play more conservatively during the body count round. Don't attempt to kill a player unless you know you have a good chance to kill them. I realize that it's easier said than done, but just keep that in mind during body count. And just to hammer on that point some more, I believe that the very best players know when to engage and when not to engage. Take for instance this situation here. I'm coming up from the stairway and I see the opponent here. And I know him very well because he tends to get weird shots on me, like here where he shoots me around a corner. So facing him head to head from this lower staircase puts me at a major disadvantage. So I withdraw and run back the other way. And as a result, I'm still alive and I can keep working the objectives. Later in that same game, I'm in this hallway and that same player comes into the room from this door. This time I have the upper hand. And guess what he does? He withdraws from the room. That is the mark of a very experienced player. You can't let your pride get in the way. Now let's talk about spawn grenades. If you're a new player, please don't use them unless nobody on your team is putting them out. The person who places out spawn grenades needs to be someone who is experienced and therefore able to get to the other side of the map without being killed, because if they get killed, they don't get to place the grenade in a good spot. When you do get experienced enough and start using the spawn grenades, try your best to place them in locations where the opponents cannot see the smoke coming from them. Sometimes that means throwing them off the map. You can't do that on every map though. Also be willing to sacrifice yourself to get a spawn in the exact spot that you need to put it in. And that's what I do right here. I instantly die, but I got it right where I wanted. Each side can only have 2 spawn grenades out at once, so try to avoid putting them in the same exact spot. Specifically for search and destroy, it's sometimes good to have one very close to the target and another one a little bit away from the target. Before you choose to spawn at one of those grenades, take a look at this screen here, and if there's any camera footage, check it to make sure the enemy isn't camping around the spawn point. Admittedly, this is something I forget to do all the time, and I sometimes end up getting killed as soon as I spawn. Speaking of camping spawns, get in the habit of doing it. I mentioned that there's only 2 per team, so if you're able to keep one of those spawns bottled up, it's going to massively impair the opposing team's ability to work the objectives. Now take note of the direction that people are facing when they come out of the spawn. They're normally facing all the same way. Get behind them like this if you can, and that way they will have no chance of not dying. Once you are camping them, they do catch on quickly. Like for this one right here, they're not coming out of it at all. It's probably helpful to stay there anyway, because the minute you walk away, they're going to start using it again. Also make sure you're taking advantage of the squad system. If you don't know how it works, you'll learn in time. But basically, it's just another way of spawning. Just know that the head of the squad needs to be someone who is experienced enough to stay alive for long periods of time, and they need to move throughout the map. As a new person, I do not recommend you be the head of the squad. It should also not be someone who is staying in one part of the map, like somebody who's being a sniper. My last bit of advice is regarding search and destroy. When your teammate is attempting to arm the bomb, be willing to sacrifice yourself to allow them to accomplish that task. The opponent knows when it's being armed, and they are going to shoot everything in that direction to kill the person that's arming it. So block that line of fire a little bit away from your teammate. That way if they toss a grenade, it'll hit you instead of them, and their bullets will hit you instead of them as well. That will buy them enough time to arm the bomb. Okay, so if you have a tip on how to become better at Killzone 2, put it down in the comments below so that others can learn from you. Thanks for watching the video, and long live Killzone!